Okay, you don't need your books quite yet, but we'll get there in a little bit. So, new title page, Chapter 9 notes, that's all that goes on that page. If you want, as you're going through, you can put each entry down like I do at the very end. That way you don't have to write a bunch in the last day. If you want to put the entries down, don't forget that the first page is always your title page. Okay, first entry for today. What we're going to be doing today is we're going to be thinking about some things. So, you want to title your first entry in your journal, Chapter 9, Think About. And I'm going to put two questions up there, and one of them has to do with different viewpoints and kind of thinking about why we would want different viewpoints. And the other one has to do with advising the president. Okay? So I want you to write the questions out, so please make sure you write the questions out. And the first one is about the viewpoints, and it says, why might you want people with different viewpoints in your government? Okay? As you're thinking about that question and trying to answer it, think about what it would be like if every single person in the government had the same exact viewpoint or opinion. All right? Maybe that'll help you in answering it. The second question is, President Washington, he came up with our very first, what we call cabinet, and he had 4 members in this cabinet, and the cabinet is people that advise the president. And the question is, why would you think that Washington feels he needs advisors? So just write the questions out, and then do your best to answer them. You know, you don't use your book. There's no right or wrong answer. Just think about them. Think about having the same viewpoint. Why would we want different ones? Austin?
So the president can't take over?
President can't take over? What are some other thoughts? Abby?
Because people who aren't in the government have, like, a different point of view.
Okay. Dev?
So then you can have different ideas to make one big whole main idea.
Oh, okay, different ideas to make one big idea. Lindsay?
So people were biased?
People aren't biased. Good, that's a good one. I like that one. If everybody in the government all had the same opinion on one issue, do you think they'd see the negatives in that issue? They'd miss that. So you need those people with the different viewpoints who can stand up and say, have you thought about this, or have you thought about that? I mean, it's kind of annoying sometimes because there's a lot of debate and arguments, but it's necessary. You need it because if you all have the same viewpoint, whatever you think of, you think's great and good. No one's going to ever think bad. Max, did you have something?
I was going to say that there would be no discussion in government.
There probably wouldn't be much discussion, and we need it. At times it gets a little out of hand, and maybe it's too much craziness, but you need to have those different viewpoints. Katie?
Yeah, and their opinion might not be swayed.
Yeah.
It might be swayed.
Might be swayed. You could have opinions sway one way or the other. Are you okay? Are you okay?
Yeah.
Okay, just checking. All right, so moving on from that, the different viewpoints, and this could go along with the cabinet. George Washington came up with our very first cabinet, okay? How many of you have heard of the cabinet? Not like those cabinets, but a cabinet. Okay, tell me what it is, Nick.
It's just people that would advise or assist the president.
Yeah, the cabinet is a group of people that assist or advise the president. And George Washington came up with our first cabinet, and he came up with 4 people that would be in that, 4 members. Why don't you, while we're talking about this one, open up to 291. And while you're doing that, why do you think he would feel he needs advisors? He's a leader of a country. Abby?
For different point of view.
Different points of views, good. Deb?
So if he's going on the wrong track where he doesn't know what to do, they can just ask those advisors and they'll give him an idea of what to do.
Okay, they could give him ideas on certain things, what to do on certain things. Do you think that George Washington or any president knows everything about everything? No. Okay? So, he has these members, and if you look on the top of 291, there are his 4 members. And each member kind of is almost like an expert at one specific topic. Okay, so you've got Alexander Hamilton, who was kind of the main guy, was like really good with the economy and money. So he was known as he was the Secretary of Treasury, meaning he would advise the president on any issues that dealt with the economy or money and finances and things like that. Okay, so he was the expert on that. You know, President Washington, yes, he probably knew a lot about the economy and things, but Hamilton was the expert. So when Washington needed help, he could turn to him. And plus, you have to delegate certain jobs and responsibilities out to others. Okay, Thomas Jefferson was kind of your expert at dealing with foreign countries. He was quite often overseas dealing with other countries trying to get help and aid and things like that. He wrote our Declaration of Independence. So he became known as the Secretary of State, meaning he would deal with all the other countries. Edmund Randolph. He was the Attorney General, meaning he would deal with anything that has to do with the law. Okay, and Henry Knox was an expert with things with war. He was an excellent general in the Revolution, and he became the Secretary of War, so he would advise George Washington on things with the war. So it makes sense to have advisors, because then these people are experts, and they know what they're supposed to do, and they come and they meet, and if it's just on issues of the war, you know, Washington's going to meet with Henry Knox, and he's going to talk to him about, you know, this is what I think we should do here, and so on. So ultimately, the president makes his final decision, but these guys advise him on certain things. All right. George Washington came up with the first cabinet. He had 4 members. That was 1789. How many members do you think Obama has today? 22, you say? Anybody? 15? It is 15.
Oh, it's a 15.
Oh, it's 15. I thought you said, you should have said, yeah, I said 15. 15, he has 15 members. So that makes sense to have more, because there's a lot more things going on in our country and in the world that we need to have that many more people. Okay? And I'll show you all 15 of those, I think, tomorrow. Depends how far we get. Flip it to 293. If you haven't figured out by now, this chapter is on George Washington. All right? We finished the Constitution. That means they're starting their new country. Okay? And they have unanimously chosen George Washington to be president. And in the American story, you read it later, Charles Thompson is a guy who goes and has to deliver the news. There's, you know, no TVs and phones and things, so this guy has to get on his horse and go up to Mount Vernon, Virginia, and tell George Washington that he's been unanimously chosen. And George Washington kind of is like, he doesn't want to do it. He thought he was done. He thought he retired. He thought he retired after the war, which he didn't want to be general. He retires. Then they call him back and say, we want you to be president of the Continental Convention, Constitutional Convention. He really doesn't want to do it, but he does. He retires again. And now they come around and say, would you be president of our country? Everybody wants you. So he says, okay. He kind of takes it on as an honor, but also kind of as a burden. He has to guide our country through the very first times. Everything he does is going to set a precedent, probably. So everything he's done well, unless you ask Garrett. But he's not ever wanted to do it. He's never wanted to do it, but he's done it because he knows it's the right thing. So we'll go through and talk about and read about what it was like for George Washington in the early years, because he had to set up a lot of things. The Constitution, yeah, it set up our government, but then he kind of had to set it up. They said we have a Supreme Court. Okay, George Washington's job is to set it up. We have economic problems. We finished a war. We need to pay that. He needs to figure that out. Who do you think is going to help him figure out how to pay back a debt? Because he's the president, but he can't do it all by himself. He needs help. Who's going to advise him on paying back the debt? Abby? Which one specifically? Remember the person that would be in charge of that? You can flip it back. The guy that's the financial man. Good with economics. Good with money. Max? Hamilton. He's the guy with money. So we've got economic problems. So he's going to help him out there. And there's, still we have to deal with countries abroad. Thomas Jefferson's going to help there. Everybody's going to help out in their way. But he's got to basically get the country started. So that's what the first section's about. And also, by the end of the first section, there already is going to be arguments about the Constitution because people have different viewpoints. And some people see it one way and some see it another, and we have this huge debate already at the beginning of our country's, existence. Okay. For tomorrow, what I want you to do, not that. I think it's this. Yeah, okay. In your journal, so right after what we just did, you are going to do section 1, terms and cabinet. There are only, I think there's only 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Inaugurate, Federal Judiciary Act, Cabinet, and Tariff. Part 1, there's 2 parts to this assignment. Part 1 is to read the section. Okay, read the section as you're reading it. Define all the terms, which there's 4 of them. Please don't just stop when you're finished defining the terms. Read through it all so we can have a good discussion. Part 2, then, is Obama has 15 members in his cabinet. We just talked about that. Without using any resources, no resources. Don't get on the internet. Don't look in the newspaper. Just what you know or think about. What do you think each member's in charge of, okay? We know 4 that George Washington had. His war advisor, his money guy, the law, and the foreign, someone helping with foreign affairs. So just kind of list, put 1 through 15, and you don't need to put the person's name. And just come up with and see if you can think of what other things that the president would need advice on. Think about the types of things going on in the country and the world today that he would need advice on. Okay? So I want to see if you can do this. Now, if you come back and say, I found all 15, I got them online, I will not be impressed because you just copied them from the internet. I want to know what you think, what types of responsibilities you think. Okay? We'll talk about them tomorrow. So you've got 2 parts to this. You've got the terms, and then you've got the cabinet. And make sure you read the whole section. All right? This is due tomorrow. Go ahead and get busy. You have some time left.